This is episode 54 with Tom Asacker.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 54, and I've got an amazing interview for you with none other than Tom Asacker. Now, Tom is an artist, business philosopher, speaker, and author of several books, and throughout his career, he experimented with many different roles. After chatting to a friend whose son felt stuck in his 20s, Tom thought of an idea for a movie in which he could erase our thoughts and replace them. That's when I Am Keats was born, which then led to a book and a novel. In this interview, Tom discusses how our thoughts and beliefs are simply stories that we tell ourselves and limit what we're truly capable of becoming. This is hands down my favorite and most powerful episode so far, and the one I wish everyone could hear if they could choose just one episode, and even one podcast. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn how our beliefs are limiting our potential, the 3 C's to finding fulfillment in life and work. Should we try stop self-talk or just learn not to listen to it? The only way to shut off the negative voice in your head. Why positive self-talk is no more helpful than negative self-talk. How we're getting mindfulness and meditation wrong. And why everything we call reality is made up. Now again, guys, I can't stress how powerful this episode was for me, and I even got a little emotional again as I was editing it. So I really urge you to listen right through to the end as Tom shares some really life-changing insights in this interview. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/054. But for now, let's go hang out with Tom. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm speaking to Tom Asacker. Tom, welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be speaking about the topic that we're going to get into today. And, you know, I think a big part of this show is quarter life crises and hence the name. But I think a big part of quarter life crises is a result of kind of a story that we tell ourselves. Whether that's like we're not good enough or we'll never achieve the things we want to achieve or like everyone else is better than we are. So I'm really excited to get into what we're going to talk about today and kind of self-talk and belief and that sort of thing. But before we dive into that, why don't you tell us a bit about what you're up to and a bit about your quarter life story?
What am I up to in my quarter life story? Well, it's been a pretty wild trip. You know, I went to school to be an artist. I switched up and graduated with an economics degree because I thought that that's what the world wanted me to do. Left there and was an executive with General Electric. Spent 10 years there, left and founded a medical device company. Left there and started a consulting firm, left and wrote a book, got up on a stage and started speaking, wrote 6 more books, wrote a screenplay and another book. So I've been all over the place, really. It's like I said, it's been kind of a wild ride, but an interesting one.
Yeah, it's so cool because most of the guests I've interviewed have been people in their 20s and maybe even early 30s, but I have mentioned before that I want to get some slightly older guests on to kind of speak about things from their kind of bird's eye view perspective. So what were some of the challenges that you faced in your 20s?
In my 20s, getting a job was the biggest challenge. When I graduated from university, the unemployment rate was way the hell up there. I mean, it was difficult just to find employment at that time, but beyond that, I mean, I wasn't doing any kind of deep reflection. You know, I was working, I was playing, I was married, I was having children, I was living life. Mm-hmm. You know, I was painting, enjoying myself. I wasn't really sweating too much, I guess.
You weren't browsing Instagram or Snapchat.
No, listen, we didn't have cell phones. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and there's probably like two sides to that. Is first, there were fewer distractions, so it was probably easier to do sort of deep creative work. But then the other side is, like you said, you battle to find a job. But it's today, with technology and social media and everything else, there's so many more job opportunities that it's. I don't want to say. There are still people struggling to find work, but I kind of want to say I don't want to say it's easy. I want to say there's more opportunities for people to do their own thing and create something out of nothing. So I guess there's like kind of two sides of the coin.
No, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Cool. So normally when I interview people who've written a book, let alone 6 or 7 books, but I normally leave that part to the end. But I think what I'm kind of feeling right now is that it might be valuable to speak about I Am Keats right at the beginning, and for you to tell us like how that came about and what the book is all about.
Okay, sure. So probably about 3 years ago, I was in my own little funk. I just wasn't feeling it, whatever it was. I didn't feel meaning, purpose. I wasn't depressed. I was just down. I was just dispirited a little bit. And I was meeting a friend of mine, a business attorney, and we were having coffee, and we were talking. In fact, we were talking about his son, his 20-something-year-old son, who was home and he's stuck. According to my friend, he just can't get out of the house. He's depressed. Has no passion. And the words that came out of his mouth were, he's so damn smart that no one can reason with him. You can't argue with him. And at that time, I thought to myself, I said, Jesus, sounds like me. You couldn't reason with me either. And then I realized that what was trapping him and trapping me were our memories. As human beings, all the information about the world, everything that we think and believe about the world is stuck in our minds, in our memories. And that perspective is a limiting perspective. We start believing that we know everything because, we've read things, been places, done things, and it's an illusion. And so I thought to myself, wow, if we could just wipe out his son's memory, then we can fill his mind with whatever we want, and we can get him moving in a new direction, in a more empowering direction. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know why, but I left there and I said, geez, that would be an interesting premise for a movie, to have somebody lose their memory, and then this person that loves them kind of recreates their life by telling them a different story of who they are and what they can become, and then see what happens. And that triggered the next 3 years of my life, because I then met a writing partner, Shannon, and we started working on a screenplay, and we finished the screenplay, and then all kinds of philosophies started pouring out of this screenplay. The characters started speaking to us, and we took those philosophies, and I put that into a book, a little book, and then we took the screenplay, and we're turning that into a novel. So it's just, I don't know, philosophically, it's just the way I think people should live their lives. If they feel something, they should figure out how to start it and then do it. Mm-hmm. Figure out how to do it as you do it. Don't try to figure it all out before you do it, because you never will.
Yeah, and you've obviously done this like several times, jumping from different careers to different careers. So, two things that came up that I want to kind of discuss. What you're saying, am I right in saying that it's like our belief of what is possible is limited by the experiences we've had? And if we haven't had like all different types of experiences, we're going to have a cap on what we think is possible. Is that kind of accurate?
Yeah, it's exactly right. As a matter of fact, the word belief itself is limiting. So as soon as you say you believe something, whatever it is, now you basically shut off possibilities of anything else, right? I believe that, I don't know, that whole milk is the best to have on cereal. Okay, you're all done now. You're not going to try pouring anything else on your cereal. Now, that's a foolish example, but I can take that example and I can apply that to anything that you want to talk about that you believe in. So belief limits possibility. So I suggest to everyone to not hold their beliefs too tightly and so that they stay curious about what's out in the world and what possibly could be better for them and for the people around them, the people that they love.
Mm-hmm. I'd love for people to, if they're listening to this, go and tweet "belief limits possibility." And then the other thing, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really powerful. And the other thing that I wanted to ask was, you mentioned like your friend's son couldn't really find his passion, and you also mentioned like you weren't quite feeling it. When you were in your 20s, was there such a hype around like needing to find your purpose or your passion in the world?
No, it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day about what I think is, I think it is misguided. It was an article that I read, I think it was in Harvard Business Review. And what they were saying to all of these executives at firms that work with younger people, millennials and 20-somethings, they said, what you need to do is talk to them about the purpose of the organization, because they're not engaged with their work. And I started thinking about that. And, I don't remember ever working at a job, ever, where I was turned on by the purpose of the organization. That my mind never worked like that. My mind always said, be turned on by my purpose, which is to be the best I can be at what I do. How can I be curious, compassionate, creative, with whether I'm selling shoes, working as an executive, owning a medical company, whatever it is? I think this purpose notion has to come from the inside of individuals. And they can bring meaning to slicing, sushi, if that's what interests them. So instead of trying to inject purpose from the outside, find people that are internally driven to become something, to make something of themselves. Then you'll have an organization filled with passionate employees.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of brings the image of like the happy whistling janitor to my mind. It's like no one would really say their passion or their purpose in life is to be a janitor, but that guy's got like an intrinsic enjoyment with what he does. So
yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
It kind of sounds like, even if that wasn't really the buzzword when you were in your 20s, it was more about like feeling what brought you fulfillment and just doing that thing, rather than like today where find your passion has kind of become like an intellectual thing where we're trying to think it through instead of feel and like go inside and listen to our gut about what it is we actually want to do. Now we're sitting and like, I need to find my passion. And
exactly. Yeah, but you see that is a fool's errand, because your passion is not out there. Your passion is in you. You are the experiment that you're running during your life. You know what I mean? Not the external world. As soon as you look at the external world as the source of your inspiration and your meaning and your purpose, it's over, because it's going to disappoint you in some way. You are the source of your own growth and your own learning. So go in, find whatever it is that makes you great, that turns you on, and then inject it into the external world in whatever happens to turn you on at the time. Don't start looking for that thing out there. It's not there. It's in you.
Yeah, we're about 10 minutes in, and this is knocking on the door for my favorite interview so far. So I know, like, it can be easy to say, go out and find that thing, but like, what are some ways that people can actually do that?
Yes, yeah. And then what I'm telling you, it's not out there. So look at it this way. Say to yourself, okay, I've got two ways I can live life. One way is I can be worried about everything, try to make sure that I'm certain about what everything means, keep it under my control, try to stay comfortable, and just play this game of predicting the future, worrying about what people are thinking, being anxious, doing all of that. And that's what most people do. Or I can say, look, my purpose while I'm here is I want to be curious, I want to be compassionate, and I want to be creative. Now, I don't care what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be curious about it. You can be compassionate. How do I help improve people's lives, the ones I work with, the ones I interact with? And how do I become creative? How do I do this better? How do I make people smile? How do I add value? You can do that in anything that you do. You can do that when you walk into the gym to work out. You can do that when you go to your job. You can do that when you come home to parent. You can do that when you go see your parents. Be curious, be compassionate, and be creative, or try to be certain, keep everything under control, and stay comfortable. It's your choice.
Yeah, man, I love that. So I'm wondering then, I was going to ask you about, you start the book with, we're confined in mental prisons of our own creation. We've kind of touched on that already, being limited by what we believe in. So I'll just kind of move along to this next thing that I wanted to ask you, which is all of this about, if we think about self-talk and negative self-talk and that kind of thing, is that about, is kind of overcoming that? Is it about stopping that self-talk, or is it about learning to not listen to it?
Yeah, there you go. That's a perfect question. I remember there was a scene in the movie A Beautiful Mind. And I don't know if you've seen this movie. If you haven't, you should see it. It was with Russell Crowe.
I should see it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Anyway, this genius, he ends up becoming like schizophrenic, hearing these voices in his head, but he also sees these people. He thinks they're real. Mm-hmm. So he starts listening to them, and he's losing his sanity. And so they put him on some medication so he doesn't hear these people anymore or see these people. And what that medication does is kills his spirit and creativity. So he goes off the medication. He sees the people again. But his mind said to him, wait a minute, that little girl that keeps talking to me, she doesn't age. So he realizes at that point that these people are not real. So he now can listen to them, but not follow their advice anymore. So he still has his creativity because the voices are still there, but he's not listening to those voices anymore. And because he's not listening, they get quieter and quieter. So that's what I'm trying to say. We have this voice of the world in our head, all of us do. And we worry about the past, and we think about the future, and what's this person thinking? What's that person thinking? What's going to happen if this happens? All of that noise in your head, if you can understand what that's all about, what it's trying to do, that it's trying to keep you safe and comfortable and protect you. So if you can listen to that and then ignore it, then you can maintain your creativity, and you can have this voice of reason when you need it to help you. It's still there. So that voice is going to be with you forever. It's like I went whitewater river rafting, and there was a guy in the back of the boat, the guide, and he was trying to make sure we didn't hit rocks, flip over, crack our heads, drown. So he was going to be with us on that trip all the way down the river. But if we wanted to enjoy ourselves, we didn't listen to everything he said. There was a certain point where I just jumped out of that thing. Just to feel the water and to float down the river.
Yeah.
So you can either listen to this guy in the back of that rubber raft, and he'll make sure that you won't get hurt. But you may not have the best time of your life either going down that river.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a quick side story. It was New Year's Day a couple of years ago, and we went whitewater rafting at about 6 a.m. after getting to bed at 5. It's when I still drank alcohol in those days. I don't anymore. But there was a quick way to sober up. And so cool. So just coming back to what we said now. So the fact that we have negative self-talk doesn't make us wrong or bad or broken, but it's kind of learning not to listen to that and not be defined by that sort of self-talk. And then
Brian, the interesting thing is it's not your self-talk. If people can understand that it's not Brian's mind that's talking to him, it's the world. I can tell you everybody's self-talk is kind of the same. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to go bankrupt and I'm going to live in a box. Oh, my girlfriend's going to leave me. Oh, all of this self-talk, if you ask people what's bothering them the most, it all sounds the same. Mm-hmm. So it's not your self-talk. It's something about the world that's trying to tell you these things to keep you safe. And so that, because it wants you to like make predictions. That's what your mind does as a machine. It's only trying to figure things out and make predictions about how to stay safe.
Yeah, I'm giving a kind of a motivational speech at my high school in a couple of weeks. And when I got invited, I was like, oh, what if I'm not ready, or what if I'm nervous? And it kind of reminded me when I was a part of the TEDx Cape Town organizing committee. And one of my role models, one of my mentors was speaking at that TEDx event. And I was tasked with like looking after him backstage, and he was so nervous.
I know.
It was actually refreshing. I was like, yes, I'm so glad that he is nervous, because like you said, like we all go through that same thing. And I think the ability to kind of overcome that is what separates the people at the top from the ones that stay stuck in that bubble.
That's exactly it. And the interesting thing is while you're doing this thing in your life that makes you special, don't expect everybody around you to look at you and applaud. Mm-hmm. That's not what happens. If you look at all the memes that get shared all over the internet, like from Oscar Wilde and whoever, Jesus, Buddha, whatever, it doesn't matter who they are. Those people weren't celebrated while they were living and doing their thing. It's only after the fact when people say, wow, these people stepped out of that story and lived the passionate life that they were meant to live. And that's why we share messages about them and do movies and books. And
one of my favorite historical figures is Marcus Aurelius. And his most famous piece of work was his meditations, and those weren't even designed to be read. It was like his personal journal to himself, reminding himself to get better.
Exactly.
Only now, like thousands of years after he's dead, people are celebrating how amazing he was, and the kind of the thoughts that he had. Cool. So how do we improve at ignoring that self-talk and not letting it define us? the golden question.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the most difficult answer to give because people don't want to experience any type of pain. We've created a society where eliminating pain seems to be the goal, right? I mean, we'll make bigger helmets for kids on their bicycles. We're not going to let them sled down the snow anymore because they might hit a tree. Everything that we're doing is to keep everybody safe, no pain, no problems. And the only way to get past this idea of listening to that voice is to do things when you feel like you should do it, despite what the voice is telling you. So you say to yourself, Brian says, I think I'm going to do a podcast. I think it will help people. And then here comes the voice. Well, Brian, what if nobody listens? I mean, who the hell are you to do a podcast? What do you know about this? And so the only way to shut that voice up is to do it. Mm-hmm. Is to say, no, I want to do this. This is my life. I don't know how long it is. I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. Forget the outcome. I don't care about the outcome. I'm doing it because I like doing it. I don't go whitewater river rafting for the outcome, which is to get to the end of the trip. I do it to enjoy the trip.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so great. Cool. So why...
And hard to do.
Exactly. Why are we so willing to just accept and believe what other people say about what's possible and ignore our own intuition?
Well, because think about it. I mean, we're one of the few animals that when we're born, if other human beings aren't taking care of us, we die. So we need to have the approval of others and the attention of others in order to survive from the time we're born. And we get really good at that, right? It's like I just rescued this dog. And this dog is watching me all the time, trying to figure out the right thing to do, where to sit in order to get snacks, all these little things. It's just watching me, getting its cues for how to behave. And we do the same thing with the people around us. We try to get the cues from them on what's the right thing to do, what's the proper thing to do, what's the best way to do it. And that just shuts down our internal voice our internal desires, our wishes, because we start believing, well, if they all don't think it's right, then maybe it's not right. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. That's where it comes from. That's all these collective beliefs are about keeping all of us operating efficiently and comfortably, right? I mean, think about money. I mean, we all believe these pieces of paper have value because we put like dead presidents' faces on them. And it's just a belief system. It's just something that we made up in order to connect with each other, and to trade. But it's made up. It's invented. Well, guess what? Everything is. Every single thing is. What you wear, what you're wearing today, what you eat. We've made all this stuff up. But we become hypnotized, and we honestly believe that this is the way it is. This is reality. But it's not. It's a belief, and it can be changed anytime you want.
Yeah, we mentioned movies earlier. It feels like, from the way that you're describing it, it feels like we've kind of created our own version of the Truman Show, where like the things around us are just what we've kind of believed is there, and it's not really the case.
No, it's true. Listen, when I was working on a screenplay with my writing partner, we get to a particular scene, and it was kind of boring. And now I want you to imagine we had written these characters into this thing for a year. So we knew these characters, their histories, their backstory, what they're all about, how they think, how they feel. And then she said to me, I know what we should do to make this scene exciting. And I said, what? And she said, we should have Phil, and I don't remember exactly what she wanted this character Phil to do. We should have Phil do this and this and this and this. And I looked at her and I said, what the hell are you talking about? Phil would never do that. Right? And now, the funny thing is I heard my own voice. I stepped out of myself and I said, that is the weirdest thing in the world. There's no Phil. What do I even mean? Phil would never do that. And then I realized, if that created a visceral feeling for me that we can't make this fictional character that we invented do something, then what do you think prevents normal human beings from doing things? Because they have a history, they have a backstory. And when they think of doing something, they say, Brian would never do something like that. It's a subconscious thing, but it is so powerful. And when you realize that you're not a character in some kind of story, and you don't have to keep everybody around you comfortable by acting certain ways, that gives you permission to do what you feel like doing. Do the things that drive you.
Yeah, that's so cool. So we mentioned negative self-talk. I'm curious then, how does positive self-talk fit in, or your understanding of it? Because technically these are still, I don't know, the way that what I'm thinking here is a positive self-talk is still a story. Mm-hmm. So how does that fit in versus acknowledging the way that things really are?
See, I agree with you. I don't think there's much difference between negative self-talk and positive self-talk, because it's just talk. Mm-hmm. It's just your brain telling yourself stories. And they're all invented, right? They're invented.
Yeah.
So why do you have to tell yourself one thing or the other? It's interesting. Somebody said to me, yeah, but we become whatever the story is that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
That talk, that's what we become. And I said, well, that's interesting. So I said, I just watched the Super Bowl, and obviously Tom Brady, he must have told himself a story that he's a champion and he's going to win the Super Bowl, because he did. I said, so now the other quarterback that lost, did he tell himself he's a loser? Because he lost. So what did he tell himself? You see, all this telling yourself stuff is nothing. It's doing it. It's going out there and training and trying to be the best and improving. It's not all the talk. As a matter of fact, you know what's interesting? What they found, and this was a study that I read a few years back, and I think the New York Times reported it. They were trying to understand heroes, these people that just do things like dive into a river and save a little girl that's drowning.
Yeah.
And they try to understand these people. And you know what they found out? These people don't tell themselves anything. They just do what needs to be done when it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And the minute their brain turns on, and starts talking to them, they don't jump in the river. That's why the people who don't save people don't do it, because their brains click on and the self-talk starts going, oh, I don't know, maybe we should take our shoes off. We just bought these shoes. But the heroes, they don't have any talk going on. Their instincts, those intellectual, compassionate instincts just take over and they do it. Yeah. So that's my view of it, is let your feelings in your gut and everything that's uncertain about life, let that be the pull for you, and just step into it and stop thinking so much about it.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of meditations, in terms of practicing like hearing or seeing thoughts and kind of coming back to
like mindfulness and
yeah.
All, yeah. I would say I probably meditate most of the day because I'm always listening to my thoughts. Yeah. When I said, try to understand this voice that's talking to you all the time, this voice of the world, that's mindfulness. That's mindful meditation, is basically you're taking yourself out of your thoughts and you're distancing yourself from them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't sit in a lotus position for 10 minutes and try to clear my mind, but I'm always trying to understand the thoughts that are coming at me, to find out what they're trying to tell me and how they're trying to distract me and what they're trying to get me to do, so that I'm actually acting consciously and not reacting like some character in some movie.
Yeah. And I mean, that's pretty much why people would want to meditate. If they remove all the kind of woo-woo bullshit that's around, is like you meditate so that you can see and listen what's going on, and then choose how you want to respond to it. So
exactly. But I would say it's important, Brian, because there's a trend that's happening that's kind of concerning me a bit. It's because this mindfulness meditation is like going gangbuster into organizations now. Mm-hmm. And what I think they're doing with it is they're using it to kind of pacify people. So when people are feeling something and it's working them up, what they're doing is just learning how to be mindful and to calm to develop this space so that they don't react. That's fine, but don't use it to pacify yourself.
Yeah, to blunt those signs that are coming up from deeper inside.
Exactly. You need to hear those voices to understand, why is this working me up? What's going on? Who do I need to go talk to now, in a rational way? Because I don't want to keep feeling this.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should use meditation as a medicine like we do alcohol or any other drug, right? I think we should use it as a way to discover what's not working for us, so that we can do something to change it and make it better.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that take on meditation before. I really enjoyed that. Tom, I do want to be mindful of time. I've got like a couple of questions left here.
Okay.
Based on everything we've discussed so far, what is your belief on the word reality? Is there such a thing as reality?
Is there such a thing as reality? So you're asking me, is there an objective reality?
Well, yeah,
right?
Like when people say something like, it's time to come back to reality, or something like that. Like, is there such a thing, or is it all just limitations?
Yeah. So is there an objective reality? Yeah, there probably is. Can you and I experience it? Can we see it, feel it, taste it, through our human senses? Probably not. I mean, for example, the desk that you're looking at, it looks solid, but it's actually just like electrons and things moving very, very quickly. That's why nothing can fall through it. It's not really solid. So can you and I experience that reality if it not being solid? Probably not. I mean, unless we're taking LSD or something. So there's that physics reality of the world. Then there's this human construct, the social game, and that's all invented. I'm going to tell you, there is no reality at all. It's made up. We make it up. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, if you sit down and you really think about it, I was watching the news this morning, and I saw some team sign someone for an additional 3 years for $20 million for 3 years to play this game, throw a ball or something. And I started thinking about it, and I said, I wonder what Navy SEALs get paid to risk their life to go to a foreign country. I know it's not $20 million for 3 years. So we give a guy who throws a ball $20 million, and we give a guy who risks his life a fraction of that.
And even teachers.
And teachers, right. Or nurses, right? Neonatal nurses. So that is it. Now, do you want to call that reality? It's not reality. It's the game that we invented. And we all collectively decide. There's no one deciding this. It's all made up. Mm-hmm. If we all decided tomorrow not to watch sports, none of these people would make any money because there wouldn't be any advertisers to pay for all the TV spots. So this whole thing is a construct that we invent, and we can change it anytime we want or step out of it as an individual. It's up to us.
Oh man, I love it. Tom, is there anything else we didn't touch on that you think might be valuable for people listening?
Only to understand that they are, in fact, whether they believe it or not. And I only learned this by reading hundreds of screenplays for movies and writing one. People are living as characters in a story. They don't know it. And if they don't learn quickly that that's what's going on, they're going to wake up one day and they're going to say, why did I do that? Why didn't I do this? And it was because subconsciously they thought they were supposed to be this person and do these things. And they don't have to. They have free will only if they become conscious that they're the ones making the decisions for their life. If they stay on autopilot and they stay hypnotized and they self-medicate, then what will happen is they're going to be a character in the story that everyone else is writing for them instead of themselves.
I love it. Tom, I've got some final questions at the end here, so just kind of rapid fire, quick little
All right,
answers.
Make them easy ones.
Yeah, what do you wish you'd been told in your 20s?
Exactly what I just told you. Which is I can choose to do whatever, because you know what? If I had known that, I wouldn't have got an economics degree. I would have continued with pursuing my art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today, or 20-somethings?
Oh man, they have the opportunities that no one has ever had before. Because think, when I was young, if I decided that my art was what turned me on and I wanted to share it with others and see if I could add value to other people's lives, what could I do at that point? What I could put an ad in the paper, maybe? I could ask a gallery to please hang it. Now you've got a communication device that's basically free, that allows you to share what you're passionate about with the entire world and let them select whether you're the type of person and the thing that you're doing is what turns them on as well. So you've got the opportunity now to reach millions of people with what you do. Take advantage of that and let them select you instead of you going out there trying to select them.
Yeah, man, I love that. Tom, I've got one final question. Before I get to that, where can people go to find out more about your work and I Am Keats and everything else you've got going on?
I guess the best place would just go to IamKeats.com. It's IamKeats. So it's the romantic poet John Keats. So if they go to IamKeats.com, they'll find everything they need to find.
Perfect. And I'll link up that in the show notes as well as everything else we mentioned today.
Thanks, Brian.
I've got one more question, Tom. Before I get to that, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on today and sharing such a powerful message. Without a doubt, this has been my favorite interview.
Thanks, Brian.
And the fact that you've kind of listened to your voice, your inner voice, and kind of tried things that fascinated you, and having the courage to realize that you weren't kind of experiencing it, and making another change to take a step towards that, and now helping other people realize that's going on for them too, and doing the same. So really, really grateful for you coming on today and for how you're showing up.
Thank you. I appreciate
the final thing that I have to ask is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
Somehow try to quiet that voice in their head that's making them fearful. Try to understand it. And then once you quiet it, listen to your inner voice. And whatever that inner voice is telling you to do it. Don't hesitate. Don't think about it. It doesn't matter what it is. If you get up in the morning and something says to you, go to the art gallery today, don't talk yourself out of it. Get in your car, go to the art gallery today. If it tells you pick up your camera and go out and shoot some photographs today, go do it. If it says sit down and start working on a novel, sit down and just write one paragraph today. Don't let that thinking mind that wants to stop you from doing new things, that wants to protect you and keep you in control, don't let it talk you out of doing this thing that you want to do, whatever it is.
I love it so much. Tom Asacker, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
Thank you very much, Brian. My pleasure.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 54. And a massive, massive thank you to Tom Asacker for coming on the show today and sharing so much wisdom and insights with us. If you like this one, please share it around with your friends on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, there were quite a few, but certainly the fact that we are not characters in some story and we can create whatever it is we want to create. The other big takeaway that I wanted to mention, I know I mentioned one, but I think it's worth mentioning this one, is that positive self-talk is no better than negative self-talk. It's all just a story. So go deep inside, look what's really there, listen, and then figure out a way to do that thing that you're feeling called to do. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/054. But for now, guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.